Welcome back to the deep dive. I was reading through this Torts Masterclass breakdown you sent over, and I have to say it completely changed how I look at the stuff I buy. You know how we usually think about product failures?
Oh, yeah, like if something breaks, someone owes you,
Right. Like if my toaster catches fire, I just think, man, this company owes me a whole new kitchen.
which is, the normal human reaction. You just want it fixed.
Totally.
Yeah.
But according to this material, the law doesn't just see one path to getting paid. It actually sees, well, it sees three distinct highways. We talked about strict liability last time.
Right, which is basically the product is broken, pay me.
Exactly. But today, our mission is to look at the other two routes. So negligence and warranty. And what's wild to me is that you can have the exact same accident like, the same toaster, the same fire, but depending on which road you take, the rules of the game change completely.
They really do. And that is exactly why this is such a goldmine for law students and honestly a nightmare for manufacturers.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We call it the three routes to the same product concept. You might have a case where you can't prove the product was defective by design, but you can prove the CEO was careless. Or maybe you can't prove either of those things, but you can prove they broke a promise that was printed right on the box.
And that's what we really need to unpack today for you guys listening. We need to figure out how negligence and warranty differ from that strict liability baseline, and more importantly, how to spot the traps.
Because there are definitely traps.
Tons of them.
Hmm.
The source material makes it super clear that these aren't just interchangeable labels. They have gatekeepers and specific hurdles that can just kill a lawsuit dead if you pick the wrong one.
That's the key right there. It's strategy. It's not just about what happened, it's about how you frame what happened.
Okay, so let's start with negligence. In our last deep dive, we hammered home that strict liability is all about the product itself. If it's unreasonably dangerous, the manufacturer pays. It doesn't matter if they were like saints who try their absolute hardest.
Right, the product is on trial.
But negligence feels really different. It feels, I don't know, it feels personal.
It is personal. That's the core distinction you have to grasp here. In strict liability, we are looking at the condition of the thing. Is it broken?
Hmm.
But in negligence, we're looking at the conduct of the person or the company.
Were they careless?
Exactly. Did they act unreasonably?
This is where I actually got stuck for a second when I was reading the notes. If strict liability is so much easier, I mean, you don't have to prove anyone was careless. You just show the jury the broken product.
Yeah.
Why would a lawyer ever bother with negligence? Why take the harder road?
That is the million-dollar strategic question. You're right. Strict liability is generally easier to prove on paper. But think about a jury for a second. If I just show them a broken drill, they might give you compensation for your medical bills.
Fair enough.
But if I can show them an email chain where the company knew the drill was dangerous and decided to save, I don't know, 50 cents per unit by skipping a safety test.
Oh, wow. Yeah, now the jury's angry.
Now the jury is furious. Negligence allows you to bring in all that dirty laundry. It lets you tell a compelling story about bad behavior, not just a bad object.
And juries punish bad behavior.
They do. That's why lawyers keep negligence in their back pocket. It anchors the moral narrative of the entire case.
Okay, that makes total sense. It's all about the story. So if we are putting the manufacturer's conduct on trial, the source material actually lists 5 specific breach points. These are the moments where the company could have messed up. Let's walk through these because I think some are a bit trickier than others.
Sure thing. These are basically the 5 opportunities a manufacturer has to be careful or to be lazy. The first one is negligent design.
And this one seems like a pretty high bar to clear.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough to just say, hey, there was a safer way to build this thing.
Right.
You actually have to prove that their choice to use the bad design was unreasonable.
Right. That is the exact nuance. It brings in a cost-benefit analysis. The plaintiff has to show that the risk of the design heavily outweighed the cost of making it safer. So if making it safer would have made the product cost $10,000 instead of $10, well, the manufacturer might not be negligent for sticking with the cheap design. But if a 10-cent washer would have saved a life, that's unreasonable conduct.
It's basically that grim Ford Pinto calculation. Like, is the safety worth the cost of the recall?
Grim, but yes, that is exactly negligent design. Then you have the second point, which is negligent manufacture. This one is much simpler. This is just sloppy production.
Like someone literally falling asleep on the assembly line.
Or skipping a step, or maybe using the wrong grade of plastic because they just ran out of the good stuff that day.
Because the plan was fine.
Right. Unlike design, where the whole blueprint was bad from the start, here the plan was perfectly fine, but the execution was just careless.
Okay, that brings us to number 3, which I thought was super interesting. Negligent inspection. The notes explicitly say this is unique to negligence.
It is entirely unique to it. In strict liability, we do not care about inspection. You could inspect a product a million times, but if it comes out defective, you are still liable.
It doesn't save you.
No. But in negligence, the act of failing to inspect or failing to test adequately is a breach of duty in itself.
So if I'm a manufacturer and I look at my budget and decide, you know what, testing is expensive, let's just ship it and see what happens, I've just handed the plaintiff a negligence case on a silver platter.
You absolutely have. You failed to exercise reasonable care in your internal process. That's the specific conduct we are looking for.
Okay, 4th is negligent failure to warn, which feels pretty straightforward. You knew it was risky and you didn't tell anyone.
Exactly.
But the 5th one really caught my eye. Negligent post-sale conduct. This implies the product is already out in the world. It's been sold, paid for, it's in someone's house.
This is essentially the cover-up scenario. Suppose you sell a line of toys. They seem perfectly fine when you sell them, but 2 years later, you start getting reports from parents that the battery packs are melting.
And I just ignore them.
If you ignore them, or if you realize there is a danger and you fail to issue a recall or send out a warning, that is negligence. The duty to be careful doesn't magically end when the cash register rings.
Wow.
If you learn of a danger later on, you have to act.
That seems like a massive trap for companies. Because they probably think, well, we followed all the rules when we built the thing, so we're safe forever. But their behavior after the fact can completely sink them.
It sinks companies all the time. It's the failure to act when you know people are at risk.
The source material also gave us this language decoder section. I love stuff like this because legal exams and even just reading legal briefs can be so incredibly dense. It says there are specific trigger words that tell you exactly which theory is being used.
It is literally a secret code. If you are reading a case or if you're a student reading an exam question, look at the adjectives. If you see phrases like reasonable care, should have known, failed to exercise, or acted unreasonably, the writer is screaming negligence at you.
Because they are talking about behavior.
Exactly.
And if they are talking about the product itself.
You'll see things like defective condition, unreasonably dangerous, or defect existed when sold. If you see defect existed when sold, you need to stop thinking about whether the CEO was a nice guy who tried his best.
It just doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. You are firmly in strict liability territory.
Let's apply this. The notes have this Hypo 1 about a power drill. I want to see if I could parse the difference in real time here.
Go for it. Let's see it.
So we have a power tool manufacturer. They have a standard testing protocol where they check every single unit that comes off the line. But the floor manager is in a rush one day. Maybe they're behind on their quota. So for one specific batch, he decides to just skip the test. A drill from that batch gets sold, it overheats, and it severely burns a user's hand.
That is a classic fact pattern. How do you analyze that?
Okay, so if I'm the plaintiff's lawyer and I want to go the strict liability route, I focus entirely on the drill. The drill overheated. It wasn't supposed to. It clearly deviated from its intended design, so it was defective. I don't care why it happened or who skipped what. I just care that my client's hand is burned by a bad piece of hardware.
Spot on. The drill failed the consumer expectation test. It was dangerous. Case closed. Now, put on your negligence hat.
With the negligence hat, I'm looking at the manager. He had a protocol, he skipped it. That action is the breach. He acted unreasonably by skipping a vital safety step. So I'm essentially suing the company for his bad decision-making.
You nailed it. And look at the difference in evidence you'd bring to court. In the first case, you literally bring in the burnt drill. In the second case, you bring in the testimony that he skipped the test. It is the exact same injury, but a completely different legal argument.
It really highlights why you need to keep them straight in your head. Because if you try to argue negligence, but you can't actually prove he skipped the test, like maybe the record's burned up or something, you lose.
Right.
But you could still win on strict liability just because the drill broke.
That is the safety net of strict liability.
All right, so that covers the scenarios where things go boom and people actually get hurt. We're dealing with physical safety. But what about when things just suck? Like the product doesn't hurt anyone, it just doesn't do what it was supposed to do at all.
Now we are leaving the world of torts, which is all about safety and personal injury, and we are entering the world of contracts. This is warranty world.
Warranty world. It sounds like a really terrible theme park.
It is a theme park entirely made of fine print. Warranties aren't about fault or danger, they are simply about broken promises. Did the product live up to the deal we made?
The notes break this down into express warranties and implied warranties. Express seems simple enough. If I tell you this car have a V8 engine and you pop the hood and it has a hamster on a little wheel, I lied to you. That's a breach.
It definitely is. An express warranty is any affirmation of fact, promise, description, or even a sample that becomes what the law calls the basis of the bargain. Basically, if you bought the thing because I said the thing, that statement is a warranty.
But this is where I get really annoyed as a consumer, because salespeople lie, or let's say exaggerate all the time. The notes call this the puffery trap.
Puffery is the ultimate legal shield for sales talk. The law basically assumes that reasonable people know salespeople hype things up to make a commission. So if a statement is just a vague opinion, it's not a warranty, it's just puffery.
I went through the list in the source material, and some of these feel like such a scam to me. Like if a roofer says this roof will last 20 years, that's a warranty, right?
Yes, because 20 years is a specific measurable fact. You can mathematically prove it wrong.
But if they say this is the best car on the market, that's puffery.
Correct. Because what does best actually mean? Does it mean the fastest, the cheapest, the most comfortable? It's completely subjective. A court won't enforce the word best.
What about something like you're going to absolutely love this product?
Total puffery. You can't sue a company because you didn't fall deeply in love with their vacuum cleaner.
It's frustrating, though, because when you hear things like top quality or finest ingredients, you assume that means something real. You assume there's an actual standard behind those words.
And that is the exact trap. Top quality is legally meaningless unless they define what that quality is, like saying it's grade A beef according to the USDA. It's just noise to get you to open your wallet.
So the lesson for everyone listening is if you want an actual warranty, get a number, get a hard fact. Do not trust the adjectives.
Always get the specs.
Okay, so those are the promises people actually say out loud or print on the box. But then there are the implied warranties. These are the ones the law just glues to the product, whether the seller says anything or not.
Right. The big grandfather of all of them is the implied warranty of merchantability.
Which is a mouthful, but it basically just means the thing works, right?
Pretty much. It means the goods are fit for their ordinary purpose. If you buy a toaster, it must toast bread. If you buy a chair, it must hold a normal person's weight. The seller doesn't have to look at you and promise, this chair holds people. It's a chair. That promise is built into the transaction.
But there's a catch on who you buy it from.
Yes. This is crucial. The seller must be a merchant who deals in goods of that kind.
So if I buy a toaster from Best Buy, I have that warranty.
Yes.
But if I buy a toaster from my neighbor Steve at his Sunday garage sale...
Steve is not a toaster merchant. He's just a guy cleaning out his garage. So there is no implied warranty of merchantability attached to that sale. If Steve's toaster doesn't toast, you are entirely out of luck.
Caveat emptor. Buyer beware of Steve.
Exactly. Beware of Steve.
Then there's the other one, the implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose. This one always trips me up a bit because it sounds so much like merchantability. But the notes use this coastal paint example, and I think that really clears it up beautifully.
The key distinction here is special use versus ordinary use. In the coastal paint example, imagine you walk into a local hardware store. If you just grab a standard can of white paint off the shelf and buy it, you expect it to work on a normal living room wall. That's merchantability.
Right. Just ordinary use.
But let's say you walk up to the clerk and say, listen, I need paint for my boat dock. It's going to be underwater half the time and beaten by harsh salt water. You have now explicitly stated a particular purpose.
Special purpose. Ordinary paint can't handle salt water.
Right. Now, if the clerk nods and hands you a specific can saying, this is the one you want, and you buy it relying on his expertise, a brand new warranty is born.
So if I paint my dock and it all peels off in 2 days, I could sue them?
Yes, you can. And here is the real kicker of this concept. The paint might not be defective at all. It might be perfectly good living room paint, so it didn't actually breach merchantability. But it breached the fitness for a particular purpose because the clerk knew what you specifically needed and gave you the wrong thing anyway.
It all comes down to reliance. I trusted the expert, and the expert failed me.
That reliance is the magic ingredient for that specific warranty.
So we have our theories down. Negligence for bad conduct, warranties for broken promises. But then the source material has this whole section called the gatekeepers. And honestly, this is where I felt the walls closing in. It seems like warranty law is almost rigged to keep people out of court.
Rigged is a strong word, but warranty law is definitely stickier than tort law. You have to remember, warranty comes from contract law. Contracts are private agreements between two people. Torts are about safety standards for society in general. So warranty has these gatekeepers that block you from suing unless you have the right ticket to get in.
The first gatekeeper is privity. I always think of this as the handshake rule.
That is a great way to visualize it. Privity asks one simple question. Did you shake hands with the defendant? Did you have a direct contract with them?
Which in the modern world is huge. Because I don't buy my iPhone directly from Apple's factory floor in China. I buy it from a retail store or online.
Exactly. So strictly speaking, you have privity with the retail store, not the manufacturer. Now, if the phone violently explodes and burns you, which is personal injury courts usually just tear down the privity gate. They really don't want technicalities blocking safety lawsuits.
Okay, but what if the phone just randomly stops working? It just breaks.
That is economic loss. If it's just about money, like you lost the value of the phone or you lost important business calls, the courts might slam that gate shut. They might say, well, you didn't buy it from the manufacturer, so you can't sue the manufacturer for breach of warranty. You have to sue the store, who then has to sue the distributor, and so on up the chain.
That seems incredibly inefficient for the consumer.
It really is, but it protects manufacturers from being sued directly by millions of end users they never actually dealt with for purely economic complaints.
The second gatekeeper is notice. This is the one that really scared me. It's basically a ticking clock.
The notice trap. In tort law, if you get hit by a careless driver, you usually have years to sue. That's your standard statute of limitations. But in warranty, you have to formally notify the seller of the breach within a reasonable time after you discover it.
The notes mentioned a commercial buyer who bought some sort of industrial sealant. It didn't work. But they waited 8 months to say anything to the seller.
And they likely lost the entire case because of it. 8 months was deemed legally unreasonable. The logic is that the seller has a right to know there's a problem quickly so they can try to fix it or inspect it. If you just sit on your hands, you lose your rights entirely.
That's wild. So you can have a completely legitimate breach, like the product was absolute trash, but because you procrastinated on sending an email, you get 0.
Absolutely 0.
And the final gatekeeper is the disclaimer. The famous as-is sticker.
The ultimate shield for a seller. A seller can legally disclaim implied warranties if they use very clear, conspicuous language like as-is or with all faults.
I see this on used cars all the time.
And it absolutely works. If you buy a car as-is and the transmission literally falls out a mile down the road, you generally cannot sue for breach of implied warranty. You agreed to take on that risk.
But there's an exception for bodily injury here too, right?
Yes. If the as-is car explodes and puts you in the ICU, the court will likely say that disclaimer is unconscionable. That's just a fancy legal term for so unfairly one-sided that we refuse to enforce it. You cannot disclaim away your duty not to kill people.
But you can disclaim away your duty to provide a working car.
Correct. You can disclaim your wallet's safety, but not your body's safety.
Which brings us perfectly to the economic loss doctrine, which really ties all this together. It explains why we have to deal with these gatekeepers in the first place.
It does. It's the ultimate boundary line. Students and actual clients often ask, if strict liability is so easy, why not just use it for everything? The answer always comes down to damages.
Money versus pain.
Exactly. If a product hurts you physically or damages your other property, you are in tort land. Strict liability and negligence are in play. The gates are wide open. But if the product just injures itself, it breaks, it won't start, it's just useless. And your only loss is money or lost profits, tort law says, not my problem.
Tort law doesn't care about your bad bargain.
Right. Tort law is purely about safety. Contract and warranty law is about protecting your financial expectations. So if you suffer purely economic loss, you are forced into warranty world. And that means you have to face privity, notice, and disclaimers head on.
So if I'm a business owner and I buy a $1 million machine that doesn't work, causing me to lose another $1 million in production downtime,
you are in the danger zone. You cannot use strict liability. You have to use warranty. And if that purchase contract had a disclaimer, or if you didn't give prompt notice, or if you somehow lack privity, you might just have to eat that multi-million-dollar loss yourself.
that is genuinely terrifying for a business. It makes reading the actual contract so much more important than just checking the machine's safety specs.
It is everything in commercial law.
Let's do a quick rapid-fire application. The notes have 3 scenarios. I wanted to try to diagnose them based on what we just discussed to see if I've got the workflow down.
Let's do it. Hit me with the case studies.
Okay, scenario 1, the space heater. The engineering team tells management, hey, if this heater tips over, it starts a fire. We should add an automatic shutoff switch. It only costs $2 per unit. Management looks at the spreadsheet and says, too expensive, skip it. The heater hits the market, tips over, and burns down a family's house.
Okay, how do you read that one?
That feels like classic negligent design. It's not just that the heater was a dangerous product. It's that management made a calculated, careless decision to sacrifice safety for profit. That is unreasonable conduct.
You're spot on. It's the decision-making process itself that was flawed. And because it caused property damage, the house burning down, you don't have to worry about the economic loss doctrine. Torts are fully in play.
Scenario 2, the post-sale toy. A company sells a toy. It seems fine. 2 years later, they find out it actually has a severe choking hazard. They hold a meeting and decide, hey, nobody will really notice, and they don't issue a recall. A kid eventually chokes.
Right. So this is that 5th breach point we talked about. Negligent post-sale conduct. The key here is the timeline. They learned of the risk later and affirmatively failed to act. That silence, that failure to warn the public, is the negligence.
Scenario 3, the industrial machine. A factory buys a robotic arm. The seller promised on the brochure it could weld 1,000 parts an hour. It only welds 400. The factory loses huge contracts because they are way too slow, but no one gets hurt.
Okay, diagnosis.
Well, no one got hurt, so no torts. This is purely a money problem. So we are locked in warranty world, specifically in express warranty, because they explicitly promised 1,000 parts.
Correct. But now that you're in warranty world, what do you have to check?
I have to check the gatekeepers. Did the factory sign a contract with a disclaimer? Did they notify the seller immediately that it was slow? Do they have privity with the actual manufacturer?
Exactly. If the contract they signed said no warranties on actual production speed, the factory loses. If they waited a year to complain, they lose. It's a contract fight, not a safety fight.
It really is just a giant flowchart. You just have to follow the path.
Law is essentially just a very high-stakes flowchart.
So to recap for everyone listening, when you hear about a product failure, don't just think, oh, sue them. You need to ask 3 distinct questions. First, what is the language? Are we talking about careless behavior, which is negligence, a dangerous condition, which is strict liability, or a broken promise, which is warranty?
Second step, check the damages. Is it blood or money? If it's just money, you're likely stuck with warranty.
And third, if you are in warranty, check the gatekeepers. Privity, notice, disclaimers. They are the moats around the castle.
They are usually where the battle is entirely won or lost in commercial cases.
I want to leave everyone with a thought that's been really nagging me since we talked about puffery earlier.
Yeah.
We are bombarded with phrases like world's best and superior quality every single day of our lives. We just tune it out.
We have to, or we'd go completely crazy.
But next time you are making a big purchase, like a car, a laptop, maybe even a house stop, and really listen to what the salesperson's actually saying to you. Are they giving you a specific fact that you can hold them to? Or are they just blowing smoke?
Ask yourself, is this a warranty or is this just an opinion? If it really matters to you, get the specs in writing. World's best means absolutely nothing in a courtroom. A 3-year guarantee on parts and labor means everything.
Great advice. Really changes how you look at the store shelves. And remember, as always, we are just 2 people with microphones and a stack of notes doing a deep dive. This is educational prep, not legal advice. If your toaster explodes, please call a real lawyer, not a podcaster.
Please do check your local laws.
Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.